Welcome back to Hoops HD, everybody. This is our weekly Wednesday evening Under the Radar podcast. I'm your
Why
host,
is
Chad Sherwood.
Chad still here? Why is he
I'm gone.
always here? God. Well, who's going to host the show?
Well, you want me gone. I'm your host, Chad
Yeah,
Sherwood.
that
I am
doesn't mean
here.
I don't want you to host.
David Griggs next to me. David Dorman back. Rocco Miller from Bracketeer.org. We are here for the Under the Radar show. And David David Griggs, I'll let you explain to what Under the Radar is, even though I really kind of have half mind to throw you off the show right now. But
Well, it's the vast majority of college basketball is what it is. There's two disqualifiers. One is the 10 multi-bid leagues, which are the six power conferences, the Big 10, the Big East, Big 12, Pac-12, and SEC. And there are the other four regular multi-bid leagues: the Atlantic 10, the Mountain West, the West Coast, and I always forget one, the American. There you go. So it's basically the 21 regular one-bid leagues. The other disqualifier, and we don't have anyone there yet, is a team that is ranked in one of the human polls, either the AP or the coaches poll.
pretty good, except I think they said there's 22 of these conferences, not
There's
21.
22. Yeah, I said 22.
But what we like to do on this show is
We got to go back and do it again.
Go through all of these
Don't want
conferences.
to be wrong.
I like to start the show by going through a feature conference, and then we'll go through the rest of them in alphabetical order. Really, I think we discussed them all pretty much about the same amount of time, but we call one our feature conference at least for nothing else. We'll also be doing our top 10 list at the end of the show, a few other things we've got lined up, but let's get right into it. Let's get right into our feature conference. And there's a lot of different conferences and try to figure out who to be our feature conference of the week that I thought about. Something that will definitely be our conference before the end of the season. Normally, we're looking for a conference that has featured itself in the past week as having a couple notable wins. I thought I'd do something a little bit different, though, and feature a conference that actually had one team who is ineligible for the postseason, is currently in last place in the standings, yet what it did in losing a pair of games, I think really stood out over the course of the past week. You've probably already figured it out. The conference is the WAC, and the team is Billy Gillespie's Tarleton Texans. Despite a 1-6 start, 0-6 against D1, not going anywhere this season, but they took Michigan to the wire, and then they were right in with Gonzaga for most of a game last night. Rocco, I'm blown away by what I'm seeing on the court, despite the record by the Tarleton Texans.
The Billy Clyde magic, Chad. I mean, that game in the Gonzaga game is the one I watched more of. I saw Michigan they kept it close. I don't know exactly on film what they did, but the Gonzaga game, it was a sight to be seen. So they basically just took Drew Timme out of the game by either fouling him if he got the ball or double teaming, trapping him the entire game and not letting them get out on fast breaks. So the slow pace helped with that from the Texans. And then Timme only had 2 field goal attempts. He was 1 for 2. Got to the free throw line 12 times or 12 attempts. But that was super interesting because then Gonzaga was looking around. Timme being the most veteran player they have, Nembhard probably second most, and they weren't getting shots to fall for a long time. And so I think at one point, right, Chad, Tarleton was up by a couple with like 11 minutes to go. It was pretty shocking. So the whole plan almost just magically worked. But even the fact they lost by 9 is a mini miracle based on what Gonzaga does to everybody else. So kudos to Billy Clyde. He figured all that out. Be really interesting to see what kind of strategy they throw at some of these top WAC teams like New Mexico State and Grand Canyon.
Yeah, I'm glad you pulled them up there, Chad. This is a team that with less than 6 minutes to go, it was a 4-point game. And you kind of saw the score and like it was close. And then I think Tarleton was ahead. And you just kind of assumed Gonzaga would eventually blow it open, but they never did. And when you look at kind of what they've played here, yeah, they're 0-6, but I don't think there's too many teams that would have more than 1 or 2 wins against that schedule that they've played. And And looking ahead, I think some wins are about to come their way. Charleston, Southern, South Alabama twice. I mean, they're about to take on some teams that are
Southwestern Assemblies of God, Dallas Christian. Yeah, they've got a couple of wins coming. But
yeah.
What they do is they slow the game down so much, it's annoying to play defense because they will not shoot the ball in the first 20 seconds of the shot clock. They just grind and they grind. And you play defense for 30 seconds, they throw up a shot. But then if you throw the ball away, you turn it over, you're back on defense for another 25, 30 seconds. It's annoying. I see why Michigan and Gonzaga lost almost a little focus during it, because it's a grinded out, slow down style, and those teams don't like to play it.
But I'll tell you, I was just going to say that the most amazing thing about it is that, Gonzaga, especially as a program who year after year always hammers the lower opponents. There's other teams that have what we call played with their food a little bit. I've never seen Gonzaga play with his food until last night.
To Dorman's point, like, look at the numbers in tempo. They're third to last in the nation. In possession length, they're second to last. So we mean he's right. The average possession, they use 21 seconds of the shot clock. That's second in the nation. That's exactly deliberately what they're doing. And it'll be fascinating. Like, they did play North Dakota State on the road. They've played all road games against D1. That was a 1-point loss. So I think they're a pretty legit team. Ken Palm's got them 182 right now. I mean, it's going to be a fun team to track all year long, I think.
Yeah. One more, and I know we got a lot to get to. Billy Gillespie, I think a lot of people remember what he did at Kentucky and then at Texas Tech after that. They forgot what he did at UTEP and what he did at Texas A&M. And before Texas A&M, like, not that they're a blue blood by any means now, they had no basketball history or culture at all before he got there. He really did elevate those programs. He had UTEP inside the bubble, and he had Texas Tech Texas A&M, inside the top 25. So he does have a history of being able to build up programs and win with defense.
Oh, definitely.
Let's take a look at the rest of the WAC real quick here as well. You see, we've actually got 4 teams out to 6-1 starts, not including New Mexico State, who has slipped up a couple times, including last night at home against New Mexico. Although, Rocco, I guess we could put a kind of an asterisk on that one slightly, not for the fact that the lights went out in the middle of the game, but also head coach Chris Jans was out with under COVID protocols for that game as well. So they are going to get another shot. They've got their UTEP game and then New Mexico again coming up this week.
Yeah, it's a big slip up. Obviously, a huge rivalry, and not having Coach Jans there hurts. There's been some other teams with coaches out for COVID, and they played well. So, I'm still trying to see how big of a factor that is, because so much prep goes into the game that by the time you get to the games, your players got to go win them. So I don't know how big of a difference it made in this case, but yeah, that's a tough loss for New Mexico State. I do still think they're legit. They'll also play again, right? They have a rematch at Albuquerque.
Yeah,
so that's
next week. It's just coming up. Like their other big rival is UTEP. They got UTEP on the road on Friday, and then they're going to New Mexico on Monday. So
those are heated games. Yeah. So you kind of throw out the records on both. And they'll have some extra fire for that second one with the Lobos. Elsewhere in the WAC, I would like to say Utah Valley and Seattle U, 6-1, really good records, but none of those wins are really against anybody yet. Utah Valley, nice job winning the lower bracket of the SoCal Challenge, but Utah Valley playing BYU right now. I really don't have a score update. I know it started very ugly, but curious to see how these teams do when they start playing some better teams.
I got a score update. They're playing, that game is going on as we record. This is closing in on halftime, and Utah Valley only down 2 at home to BYU. So they are hanging there. Maybe
Who's
even by
got
the time
that
we're
game,
done.
Chad? Is that one?
For those of you who want to know something to watch while you're watching this podcast, which you'll be watching hours after this game's gone final, yes, you can go over to ESPN Plus to watch that game, or to BYU TV. It's on both.
Excellent.
But Dorman, I think we should also give a shout out to the Lopes, who want to talk about 6-1 teams in this conference that are postseason eligible. That they are. I think I had their profile up there. In fact, I'll bring it back up again. Kind of like the other teams, they haven't really played anybody of note. They won at Loyola Marymount, but everyone's been beating Loyola Marymount so far this season.
Correct. It will be interesting to see for Grand Canyon when they get the New Mexico States. They have San Francisco coming up, I believe. That should be a good game. That should be a battle for them. They'll really see where they stand after that San Francisco game, which I know this group has been very high on, and we've discussed in great depth this year. But Grand Canyon is, like you said, won the games they should so far. They look good so far, but the tests are coming.
I find it amusing that you did not find a trip to Arizona State to be before San Francisco to be difficult. Maybe based on the fact that Arizona State didn't even score 30 points tonight in their game against Wazoo. But
Wow.
They had 10 points at halftime, Chad, I believe. 10 points at halftime. So no, I did not find Arizona State to be a test.
I'll tell you what, let's go ahead. There you do see the upcoming schedule for the rest of the conference. I think the notable games are those New Mexico State games. We'll see if head coach Jans is back. And of course the BYU Utah Valley game, which will be final by the time any of you are watching this. Utah Valley at Southern Utah, notably coming up next Wednesday. That's still a week away. Southern Utah, by the way, will be in this conference come next season, as will Incarnate Word. And Chicago State on the way out after this season. New Mexico State and Sam Houston. I don't think it's going to, if it's not after this season or after the following season, but they're on their way out as well, heading over to Conference USA. So going to see a lot of change in this conference over the next few years still, but still looking a lot better than it did a couple of years back.
Yeah.
Chicago State is on their way to play the Illinois High School Association.
that might be all it's going to take them at this point. They still do not have a conference affiliation for next season. Waiting to see what happens. Let's jump back over to the America East here. And Griggs, let me start with you. And I guess Vermont beat Dartmouth, so they had a good week this week, and maybe that's all we can say. I don't know what else to talk about.
Yeah, nice win for Vermont. UMBC going in the pit. That is kind of a disturbing result, only winning by 10. Let's see. But yeah, I still think that this is a one-horse race with Vermont going to kind of sprint ahead against anybody else. And not only that, I'm not even seeing a team that's a clear second that, while they're not as good as Vermont, is able to win against the rest of the league and keep pace with them. I'm not really even seeing that. I just think that Vermont's going to sprint ahead of everybody.
Well, I guess, Rocco, if we've got to look for somebody, maybe it is UMBC off of the win at Pitt, but it's hard to really say
only
that
by
that's
10 though.
Well, yeah, I mean, I like what UMBC is doing under Jim Ferry this far. They're pretty explosive. They had another huge game today, 98 points against Columbia. Obviously, Columbia is the worst Ivy League team out there, but they're playing with a lot of confidence and they're getting up and down the court. A lot of excitement on this Retriever team in terms of the style of play. So I think they're definitely worth keeping your eye on. I also want to say that Stony Brook was picked to win the league by coaches and media. They're starting to look a little bit more capable. They got the win over Yale. They crushed American tonight. So Stony Brook's starting to find their rhythm. And I think the key for Vermont, of course, is the health and status of Ryan Davis. They didn't look very good when he was out. And, even some of these games, they just lost to Greensboro as well. So it's not, I don't agree that Vermont's running away with this. I think they're going to have tough time on some of these road games when they're in conference. And we should have a pretty good battle. I think New Hampshire's pretty decent as well.
Yeah, if you look at least at the early metrics, New Hampshire and Vermont are the two that the metrics like early on, the best at least. Dorman, the upcoming schedule in this conference, it's maybe still too early to really circle much here this week, although the Vermont at Providence game might be interesting come Tuesday night.
I agree with you. That's a good test for Vermont. That's a team they could beat. I know Providence is in the middle of their
I don't know if they're good enough to win that game, but go ahead.
Providence hasn't exactly shown great yet. Vermont should be in that game. If they lose down the stretch, okay, but Vermont has the team to be in that game. Rocco stole my thunder. I actually do like what UMBC has done so far this year, and I don't think Vermont might not be as far ahead of UMBC as everyone thinks.
Fair enough. Actually, Dorman, let me stick with you. Jump right over to the A-Sun Conference next, where, here we are. We're all praising Liberty heading into the season, but they're only 3-3 on the early season, and I still think they're the best team in the conference, but they're not. They haven't picked up the big win, I guess, out of conference that we thought they might be able to get.
Totally agree. I was all aboard the Liberty train, and I saw him play some of those games. They didn't look great. They didn't shoot the ball real well. I do think they are the premier team in the conference this year. They will show that come January, February, and March. But I agree with you. They had some chances, and they did not really look that good.
Yeah, and Rocco, let me throw it out there. Is there anybody else that really has shown you anything though to say, hey, we are the team that Liberty has to watch out for?
And nothing bona fide yet, Chad. But I would
Yeah.
say I would say there's some teams that are like on the cusp. But like I think there's a lot to like about Eastern Kentucky, but they've had some ups and downs early on. Kudos to EKU for giving themselves a tough schedule. I think that's going to help them a lot. when we
I
get to
mean,
league
only
play.
3 points of the West Virginia loss, so they were there.
That was
game.
a good game.
Yeah, and they beat full strength Milwaukee on the road when Baldwin was healthy. That was a good win at the time. Jacksonville State as well. They're floating around 500. Disappointing loss to Valpo in their tournament, but turned around and beat Drexel and Elon. I mean, couple disappointing results, but I think they're going to be stronger. And another team I'm liking a lot up until tonight was Florida Gulf Coast. They were in a battle with FIU tonight. They fell apart down the stretch, ended up losing by 16, but that game was neck and neck until about 3 minutes to go. FIU we'll talk about a little later, but I do like what Gulf Coast has brought in from the transfer portal. Kevin Samuel, high major player. They're getting great production from a few of the other regulars, and a really nice win over Rhode Island a couple weeks ago or last week. So,
what about Lipscomb? They have the win at Dayton. They have a really strong front court. I see them making some noise in this league as well.
mm-hmm.
Well, we may
big time matchup problem for teams that don't have somebody to match up with Abdallah down low, right?
Yeah.
We've got the upcoming schedule here, and if you want to find out just how good Lipscomb is, tune in tomorrow night. Not only because of the fact that they're going to be playing, but they're going to be playing at Belmont, the Battle of the Boulevard, one of our favorite under the radar rivalries. Tomorrow night, that should be the highlight game when you do the write up tomorrow, Dave Griggs. Am I correct?
It might be. Did you see what today's was?
Not sure, I did not. So
Centenary at Louisiana Monroe.
Okay, that was a good one. I think that was a fairly close game. Is it going final yet? Even
it was a spotlight game.
104-67. Centenary hung with them if it was a 50-point spread. Let's go to the Big Sky Conference, Griggs. Let me stick with you. And we have one of the few remaining undefeated teams among the under the radars here, and that's the Weber State Wildcats. They went on the road and won at Dixie State, the first ever matchup of these in-state rivals, I believe.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to not like what they're doing. I'm still kind of big on Montana. I still think Southern Utah will be in the mix, but Weber State, no, I mean, they don't have any wins that you would look at and be like, oh man, this is a team that can get pretty close to the bubble. Maybe, I mean, those might be coming, but just not yet. But yeah, it's hard to not like what they've been doing so far. And they look good.
Yeah, and that's what I really like about it. Dorman, you're nodding your head that Weber State, I just believe in them when I've seen them.
They got Wazoo coming up in the Palouse. That will be their test. And I'm a believer in Wazoo also this year. So I really think that's going to be a good game. That will be show a lot.
Well, Wazoo at least could score points in the second half of games. Maybe they can't score in the first half.
Well, what about the rest of the
defense?
What about the rest of the Beehive? Are they playing BYU or Utah or anybody like that?
You want Weber State's schedule? Go ahead.
Yeah, they have BYU. Yeah, they host BYU actually, which will be huge in Ogden. That's coming up on the 18th of December. They'll have Fresno State at home and Utah State at home as well. So just a really big home schedule coming up for the Wildcats. And not to mention, it's conference play time, gentlemen. So Big Sky action starts tomorrow. Weber will be welcoming in NAU and Portland State. Fully expect them to take care of both. But yeah, Eastern Washington hosts Southern Utah tomorrow. And I think that could be pretty interesting. I think Eastern's playing a lot better than people expected. They had to bring in a bunch of new players, but they got some guys who could play. They knocked off shorthanded Wazoo last week. So watch out for the Eagles as a kind of a sleeper team this year.
Yeah, they're actually stepping out of conference on the weekend. I guess because 11 teams, somebody's going to have off every day. They're jumping off to Omaha, but then you'll be back out of conference again. Eastern Washington at Colorado Wednesday. Might be worth half a circle. see
Yeah.
a crazy upset could happen in that one. I think would be a pretty big upset. Rocco, over in the Big South Conference, another team that I've really started to pay more and more attention to it is the Camels here.
I like the Camels. I like them a lot. I mean, they brought most guys back from last year. They made that nice run to the finals. They also finished second in the regular season. So this seems like the year it's their turn, especially with Winthrop having a coaching change. And I like what the Camels did, and their road win at Stetson was good. The road win at Marshall really caught my eye. That was 2 weeks back, but yeah, veteran club. Cedric Henderson's a very underrated player. He could play at a high major. And Ricky Clemens, I mean, he could fill it up when he's hot. He's just really streaky. So I definitely like what Campbell's bringing. I also have to mention Winthrop came into Seattle and beat my Huskies over the weekend, Saturday night. DJ Burns is one of the more interesting players and has been in the United States. Just a haul of a body down low. He is even bigger this year than last year. Matchup nightmare. I guess his biggest challenge is staying on the court. He's only logging about 20, 25 minutes a game. I think it's just because he's so big. But, I mean, he's just got such a beautiful touch by the rim. Reminds me of Zach Randolph and the way he shoots the ball lefty and just that smooth touch. So Winthrop's certainly going to be a factor. And Patrick Good's on that team. He had 11 threes against Wazoo in the loss. He was on East Tennessee State, that great team 2 years ago. I got to know him there. So a very likable Winthrop team, despite, all the changes.
Well, they beat Washington so badly that the Huskies went ahead and just decided to shut the program down today. Completely canceled their next game. Actually, COVID protocols going on there in Washington, and hopefully they get back on the court soon and be able to make up some games here because it's conference play they're going to lose. But that is not under the radar.
Right.
Dorman, under the radar, how about this? The upcoming schedule here in the Big South, it should be coming up on the screen right now. If we're looking at Campbell, at least they are playing a huge game against Columbia International. But anything else that you are looking at this conference?
I also believe Campbell's going to VCU over the week.
Oh, yes, they are at VCU on the Saturday. I think I missed that one.
That should be a good game. They'll be tested there. And crazy as this might sound, Campbell's most impressive game to me this year, and I've seen him a few times, might be that one loss. They hung in with Duke in Durham for like 38 minutes. Duke pulled it out in the end. Campbell was in the game the whole way, and it wasn't a fluke. Campbell plays good, solid basketball, well coached. I like Campbell.
I'll tell you, Presbyterian has been a team that I've kind of liked. That not the fact that they've been good, but that they've just been kind of one of those teams that's kind of fun to watch for some weird reason for years now. They are off to a decent start. Good road test for them coming up on Monday at a pretty good Morehead State team that's starting to get things turned around. So I might want to be circling that game as well. Griggs, Big West Conference.
Oh God.
Okay, you're upset with the Big West Conference, or you're
Well,
just upset with
not
UC
the
Davis?
Just there's UC Davis, and then there's what Santa Barbara just spectacularly failed at. But how about the Eaters? This is actually a story. They are really, really good. This is a team that's good enough, I think, to maybe win a game in the round of 64. And I don't know what their paper will look like at the end of the year, but if anyone's going to make a run at the bubble, I think it's UC Irvine.
Yeah, kudos to them, by the way, for the schedule they built. This is probably the first time in Russell Turner's long career there that they've built a schedule like this. So they're really putting themselves in position. They've already got the road win at Santa Clara. They got Boise to come to their house. They won that game. A road loss at New Mexico State's not going to hurt them that bad. And look what's coming up. They're going to go to Fresno State in a week, and then they'll go to USC. They'll go to Buffalo. They got Duquesne in a game that's in Akron to give Coach Dambrot a tribute there. But those are like four, basically high upper echelon teams. And I would say they're probably at least going to go 2-2. Maybe they can get 3 out of those 4.
Yeah. I think we also got to mention Cal State Northridge goes into San Diego. We thought it was a half decent San Diego team, at least. I was kind of surprised that Northridge went and picked up that win. This is a team that was a mess in the offseason with coaching issues, and
Yeah.
they may be pulling things together here. And so who knows? Just something to keep an eye on, see if they turn that into something more. I don't think we'll spend any more time though talking about Academy of Art beating UC Davis after
That was
after we were talking about praising UC Davis a week ago. So, but Dorman, the
Academy of Art.
upcoming schedule. Anything else that you're looking at that we haven't mentioned yet?
No, Rocco mentioned it. Irvine going to USC, and before that, Fresno will show us just how good Irvine is. I don't expect them to win in USC, but if they can hang, that'll say a lot to me. USC is loaded this year, really.
Yeah, they are.
By the time anybody's watching the game, this podcast will be final. It was just about to tip as we record this. Riverside at Oregon. It might be an interesting game tonight. So if that upset happened, the reason we didn't talk about it, obviously, we're recording this before that game started.
And Riverside is undefeated against the Pac-12 this year, thanks to a three-court shot.
A three-court shot against a team that can't score 30 points in a basketball game. Rocco, the Colonial Athletic Association, James Madison, the team that is, you see a little note way down there at the bottom of the screen. They are not even going to be eligible for a automatic bid. Probably not going to be in the at-large bid conversation, but 6-2 and on top of one of the better records here. But maybe the team we should be talking about is College of Charleston.
I think we should talk about Charleston. I think what they've been able to do this quickly under Pat Kelsey is already exceeding my expectations. I thought they were going to be really strong late in the year. They already are proving it. He's got a brand new set of players. I know he's got a couple guys that came in from Europe. He's just found dudes, plain and simple, and they're playing really well. So the game at Chattanooga last week, they were down double digits in the second half, and they fought all the way back, and they beat a very good Chattanooga team on the road. I think that got everybody's attention, or at least people in our circles. And then the Tulane game, I mean, for a team like Charleston, that's a big opponent to host. They end up getting that win as well. Their only losses this far are Carolina and Oklahoma State. Nothing to hang your head about with those two. And I just think they're going to keep getting better. And they've got a really interesting game on Friday at Furman.
Yeah, that is a really interesting game.
Interesting game. I'm not as high on Furman as a certain puppet on this podcast is at this point this season. We'll get to them when we get over to the SoCon, but there is an upcoming schedule. Charleston also at Tulane coming up on Tuesday. So pair of road games coming up for the Cougars. Definitely going to be worth keeping an eye on. Let's keep things rolling along here. Dorman, over in Conference USA, I think there may be one or two games that went final in this conference that are not quite on the screen tonight, or maybe I'm thinking about a different conference. But either way, we do have FIU and Middle Tennessee out to 7-1 starts, but I've really been looking at these Western Division teams, UAB and Louisiana Tech, still so far this season.
Yeah, UAB off to a little rocky start. I thought they could have made some more noise in that tournament last week. I thought they fell a little short when they were on TV.
They beat East Tennessee State by 14 points tonight. That impressed me. Just at the margin.
Fair enough. Yeah. I like UAB. I thought they could have shown a little better last week, but I agree. This should be the class of the West, UAB and La Tech. I would look for them to make a very deep run in this tournament in March, and one of them is going to be a very tough out, and I would probably pick one of them to win a game in the round of 64. I think they're that good.
They're that good. David, is there anybody in the East even worth watching, as Western Kentucky has had some struggles so far this season?
Yeah, they're continuing to disappoint. I realize that it hasn't been against the high caliber teams, but Middle Tennessee, after just being abysmal once Kermit Davis left, back to 7-1 overall, 5-1 against D1. I kind of think that it's kind of fun to see them on the rebound, and I don't think Florida International is going to keep winning at that clip. I think Middle Tennessee is the team to beat in the East.
Okay, fair enough. We've got the upcoming schedule there. We already mentioned earlier when discussing the WAC, the New Mexico State UTEP game Friday night. Definitely one of the games to circle. But Rocco, we've got UAB St. Louis on Saturday, Louisiana Tech all the way out on Santa Clara. There's a few interesting games. You could be going to that one?
Not the Santa Clara one, no. Unlikely. But I will say Nevada's going to North Texas without Steve Alford. He's out for COVID as well. That'll be interesting because I think after Nevada kicked off AJ Brahma off the team, they've gone back to playing good basketball, blew out 2 solid teams after that. So North Texas so well coached. Got a great win over Drake that we didn't mention yet.
Thank you.
Despite it being a 7th place game, it was still pretty darn important.
Yeah.
And so good for them. And obviously, I've been saying this for years, but Grant McCaslin's the best coach in this league, hands down. So I'm never counting North Texas out of anything. And yeah, UAB St. Louis should be phenomenal. Just outstanding athletes. I'm impressed with how good St. Louis has done without Perkins. They look pretty legit, and I think they'll stay in the hunt.
Sorry, David, you had a comment?
Oh
No,
I
that
just
was my
agree
game.
with-
Okay,
Oh,
great.
sorry.
Either one of
I'm
you.
with you. That UAB St. Louis game should be really, really well played Saturday. Travis Ford can coach. St. Louis went into Boise State last night, beat them in overtime. Pretty well played game. But I'm with Rocco. UAB St. Louis Saturday night.
Okay. Horizon League, Dorman, let me stick with you. A conference that the really good job picking up 1 D1 win for the entire past week. But despite that, what you don't actually even see on there is Oakland having played a game in the last 7 days. And Oakland is a team I do like so far this season.
I agree with you. Oakland, to me, coming into the season was the team to beat in this conference. Like you said, not many teams have shown much here. A lot of teams have fallen flat. A lot of these teams are not playing good defense. They are not scoring at high clips, and they're getting run out of the gym. Having said that, I do like Oakland. I don't know what their upcoming schedule looks like. I do believe they have a test coming up in the next week or two, which will show us a lot about Oakland.
We can always pull that up here. So let's
we
go
can
ahead and do it.
always
we
pull
go.
that up.
Here we go. They've got UIC,
Michigan.
IUPUI. It's the Michigan State game. As you can see,
Yep.
there's only 2 non-conference games left because of this
Ridiculous.
22 game
Crazy.
conference season that the Horizon League is doing, which I'm not a big fan.
Yeah. Dear Horizon League people that are watching, don't do this again. 22 conference games.
Rocco, at the end of the day, it could be an interesting resume if they really dominate the Horizon League. They don't have a bad
should.
loss, and unless they pick up on conferences, there won't be a bad loss here.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a lot, I think, because I do think the Horizon League has a lot of tough road trips, and you got these back-to-back Thursday, Saturdays this year. And I just think over the course of the year, I can't see you. I love Oakland, by the way, but I can't see them not dropping less than 4 games. They'll probably drop at least 5 in reality.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Cleveland State, all they've lost to is Ohio and BYU. Nothing wrong with that. They're still really solid. Northern Kentucky can play. Who knows what's going on with Wright State, but you got to figure they'll turn it around at some point. And same with Detroit. So yeah, I think Oakland's really strong, and Jamal Cain's probably the best player in the league. It's saying a lot because Detroit's got Antoine Davis and we've got Baldwin in Milwaukee. But yeah, I mean, Jamal Cain is killing it. He had 23 points, 11 rebounds were his averages in the 3 games at the Gulf Coast Showcase tournament MVP. I mean, the guy is awesome. So anyway, I think we'll be talking about Oakland quite a bit this year.
Yeah, no, whatever I said in the preseason about Milwaukee being a sleeper team, please ignore those comments.
Well, hopefully they get Baldwin back soon.
Yeah, I know Baldwin has been out, but still, you can't, even without him, you can't be losing at home to Alcorn State. It's just not acceptable.
Not acceptable.
There's the upcoming schedule, like we mentioned. We're going right into conference play already in this conference. Oakland is at UIC, IUPUI, at step out of conference Tuesday for the game at Bowling Green. But Dorman, over in I think we're up to the Ivy League next. Maybe. Yeah, there it is. It's the Ivy League. I mean, I don't know. You look and you see Harvard wins a game over a decent Northeastern team, but then they lose at home to a Rhode Island team that you thought maybe they could be in the game. It's been a little bit schizophrenic, I think, from a lot of these teams, maybe other than Cornell. Huh.
I think it's going to continue to be very schizophrenic in this league. I think we got a lot of teams that are probably basically playing at the same level. Donahue at Cornell's up to his old tricks. I love him as a coach. He's phenomenal. He's brought in some big recruits for this league, and I think he's got the best talent in this league. I look for Cornell to get that 1 seed of the 4 come March for the Ivy League. And like you said, I think there's a lot of middle teams that could go anywhere from the top to the bottom, but Cornell is the class of this league.
I like Brown too. I know that they've also been kind of schizophrenic, but you got to keep an eye on
that's
Brown.
the thing. You see, in Rocco, we see Brown. You see a couple nice wins, but they lose the home game to Bryant, which they really should have won. You see Yale, okay, but you lose a home game to Stony Brook. It's just so hard for me to lock into a team in this conference so far.
I agree with that. Yeah, and I'm glad Dorman talked about Cornell. I thought their win over Colgate earlier was really impressive. Definitely playing better than I expected. Dartmouth has a couple good wins. You've got Princeton, who had a great tournament down in South Carolina. They continue to play pretty consistent, but and then you mentioned Yale, and a lot to like about Brown. I think it's going to be a great race. Harvard's still really solid too, but took a loss tonight. Sure. Yeah, I think it's like a 6-horse race, and there's not going to be a lot of separation.
Yeah, and only 4 teams even make the conference tournament.
Yeah, so it should be a fun
note
year.
that Harvard does host it. So if Harvard makes the top 4, they're going to be very dangerous when you get to that conference tournament. The upcoming schedule, you may want to circle Harvard, UMass. You may want to circle Yale, Auburn, possibly. Penn with a couple big 5 games here with Temple and St. Joe's coming up as well.
Should win both of them.
Biggs over in the Metro Atlantic Conference. Iona, yeah, we're going back almost a full week here, but they beat Alabama. And, I know they lost to Kansas after that, but they beat Alabama.
They did. And when you want to talk about a signature win, that is it. When you want to talk about teams that are on the bubble and what did they do, it's very possible that none of them will have done something as good as that. They might not have as many chances at wins against teams in the 40 to 60 range, but they did get one against a protected seed or a probable protected seed, and they're good, and they have not stubbed their toes. They did sweat a little bit tonight, but it was a conference game. It was a road game, and they sweated that out, but they did win.
And
I think they have 2 losses. One was to Kansas, and they have a win against Alabama. That's pretty damn good.
But beyond Iona, now, I don't know if it's a sign of this team being any good or Cincinnati being really bad, but Dorman,
wow,
Monmouth goes to Cincinnati, fresh off of Cincinnati drubbing Illinois. I think I had to see more to Monmouth because I don't think I think Cincinnati was a fluke win over Illinois, no matter what the final score in that game was. But your thoughts on that?
I agree. Cincinnati was a fluke over Illinois. And that score where Monmouth beat Cincinnati caught my eye too. When we get to the rankings later, I had Monmouth high based on what they've done so far this year. That win in Cincinnati and piled up some other solid wins. Iona to me is the class of this, but Monmouth might be okay this year.
Yeah. This is such a fun league anyway. It's going to be like you got Iona, you got Monmouth. How about Manhattan high in the standings? One of the best under the radar rivalries, that Manhattan Iona game. This is just going to be great.
Yeah, we're into conference play already. We mentioned the one game that was tonight. We've got Iona hosting Ryder coming up on Friday. Manhattan's at Siena. So it's some early conference play before we jump back out of it again coming up. But let's keep things moving on here. And Rocco, in the Mid-American Conference, should be popping up on the screen here. There's a couple teams that I really, really like so what I've seen from at the top there.
So Toledo, congratulations. They won their event, played really well down there in Florida.
Yeah.
Got some really good victories. And, that was a tournament where it was just kind of a mix of under the radar teams, but solid under the radar teams where they played Charlotte, Tulane, and Coastal. Took care of all 3. Coach Kowalczyk, he runs his system. They got a lot of new faces this year. Doesn't seem to matter. Everybody can shoot threes. And so it's a matchup problem. constantly, and so it leads to a lot of mixed results. Like they can beat teams above their weight, but they can also drop games like they did late in the year last year, which kind of cost them a shot at the at large. So we'll see how they do this Saturday. They're going to Michigan State.
This is not under the radar, but we have to mention it because it is Hoops HD. We have a quadrupler.
Okay. Griggs is going to be banned for the rest of this podcast. But there is the rest of the upcoming schedule. By the way, Ohio
Not
at
a-
LSU. LSU did win that game 66-51. It did go a final after we started this podcast, but Dorman, so Ohio's team, despite losing that game, which I didn't really think they would win, I think that they could be right up there with Toledo all season.
I'm with you. I'm high on this Ohio team. Excuse me. I like what they brought back. They got a couple freshmen that look really good. The game I will be keeping my eye on, because I also believe Buffalo will be in this mix come the end of the season. Buffalo is going to St. Bonnie on Saturday. That should be a real good game.
And that's a big rivalry as well.
Yeah,
Those
Yep.
4 Western New York teams with Buffalo, the Bonnies, Niagara, and Canisius. So well, definitely worth circling that game. Griggs, I'll let you back in for a minute here to talk a little bit of MEAC.
Oh,
games. And
we got a quadrupler going on, but let's talk MEAC.
okay, Rocco, how about the MEAC where Griggs, but all seriousness, there was the HBCU challenge down there. And I guess it was a 4 games. It was not any type of bracketed thing. It was out in Phoenix, but Norfolk State beat Hampton. Norfolk State beat Grambling, and Norfolk State is now, I believe, leading the entire nation with 9 overall wins. So how about the Spartans?
Yeah,
Playing
how about
great.
them?
I mean, playing absolutely great. And they're about to, today was the first of 7 straight road games. So we'll see them at Wichita State. We'll see them at Loyola Chicago. We'll see them at New Mexico. So a lot more opportunity coming for Robert Jones's team. But yeah, they're playing, well enough to get wins. They don't waste possessions. They play smart. Chris Bankston's still there from last year's tournament team, playing very, very well. So yeah, I mean, the Spartans continue to surprise. I mean, you keep thinking with their rigorous schedule, right? They're playing lots of games. Eventually, you're just going to have a flat night, and they haven't had one. I thought it could have been tonight, but they played well again tonight and got the win.
Yeah, Griggs, I'm going to pull up a MEAC profile here on the left. I don't think we normally do this until we get to like championship week, but at Hampton, at Wichita State, at Loyola, at New Mexico, there's wins to be had from the way they've played so far, with wins over Bowling Green and Wilmington on the road already.
Well, maybe one. I think the
Okay.
game at Hampton's winnable. I don't think any of the rest of them are. Maryland Eastern Shore, you're talking about getting in the conference play, but I think they're just entering a stretch to where they're swinging over their heads, to whereas they haven't been. The win at Bowling Green, you do kind of sit up at notice, but Grambling, Hampton, Bill and Mary, Tennessee State, these teams are not on the same level as at Wichita, at Loyola Chicago, at Campbell, at New Mexico.
Well, it's not that they're not playing at Duke, at Gonzaga, and at Kansas.
Correct.
They're playing at a level, a nice big step below that. So I would not be surprised to see them steal one of those games.
Really?
I'll put it out there.
And I hope they do. I mean, they have had a really good year.
Maybe it's the New Mexico game that might be the most winnable of that lot, but I think there's a possible win to be had here.
Mm-hmm.
But real quick, the upcoming schedule for the rest of the conference as well, coming up on the screen here. Howard, who's also off to a pretty good start at 4-4 overall, only 2 D1 wins, hosting American. Little battle of DC there, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, Howard's just out there hoisting threes. I mean, last week they were leading the nation in 3-pointers. So dangerous team when they hit them.
Big rivalry game coming up tomorrow night. Also, the Delaware State battle. I had a chance to go to that game actually a couple of years back.
Yeah.
In the pre-COVID times. It's back on campus this year. It's not on a neutral site like they did the time I attended.
Yeah.
Norman, over in the Missouri Valley Conference, this is a conference where there's a few games that went final tonight as they started conference play that did not yet make the screen. I think they're worth noting real quick here that Northern Iowa loses again, 2 points to Bradley. Missouri State loses again by 5 points to Illinois State. Loyola Chicago did pick up a win over Indiana State, at least. Those are a few scores that did not make that screen, but This is a conference that went from looking like a 3 to 4 bid conference at the end of the season to back to a normal under the radar 1 bid league at this point. Huh?
Exactly correct. I thought this team was really, really strong at the top. I thought Drake was going to be good. Missouri State, like you said. Loyola Chicago's 2 losses are respectable. Michigan State is one of those, but the rest of the conference as a whole has looked terrible. Northern Iowa, I thought would have gotten back on track tonight, but you just read me that score. Apparently, they did not.
They did not.
I mean,
wow,
this is a mess. And I thought this team, like you said, I was on the 4-team bandwagon come March. 1 max.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say here. I mean, yes, I'm not. I mean, there is still a shot here with 2, but it's got to be Loyola Chicago and Drake. I think everybody else has already written themselves off. Rocco, would you agree with that? Or
I would, yeah. I think Northern Iowa with the loss here, it's a conference loss, but they also have the 2 home losses. The Nichols one is really bad, and unfortunately for Northern Iowa, and hopefully if they can play well enough to get 12 or 13 wins in the Valley. It would get considered still because when they're healthy, they're pretty awesome. I'm a little surprised they lost today. They lost on a game-winning shot with 4 seconds to go. By the way, Southern Illinois wins on a shot with 0.3 of a second to go.
Yeah.
So really exciting night in the Valley. The Missouri State game went to OT. This is the kind of action we're going to get each week in this league, and we got it on the first night. Pretty awesome. But overall, Chad, to answer your question, Loyola Chicago's still positioned, especially their metrics are really, really good. 28th in adjusted offense, 41st adjusted defense, 29 overall. They're sitting in a spot where they can earn that spot. And then if somebody else wins Arch Madness, we'll get our 2 bids. But overall, it's disappointing what's gone on in the non-conference. But I would still say to fans, watch these games because these teams get after each other and it's amazing.
Yeah, interesting week there. They've got a big test coming on Saturday at DePaul. Now, stepping back out of conference for Loyola.
It's a good game. Yeah,
Great game.
DePaul playing well. Yeah,
DePaul hasn't lost yet. They haven't been tested, but DePaul is playing really well, and that will be a good game.
Yeah, that really is a good game. Kind of what we talked about. I agree with Rocco that you're going to see a lot of battles in this league. The problem is the teams had what appeared they appeared to have the personnel and they appeared to have the opportunities they needed to really make a strong case for themselves before now, and they just didn't. When you look at the overall record, there's 3 teams that are above 500. That's it.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, Drake fought so hard to get into that tournament, and it's not like they didn't. They obviously didn't play well, but they didn't get blown out either. They lost all 3 games by single digits. They were right in there in all 3, and just unfortunately fell short. Played 3 really, really well coached teams. It's just unfortunate, but hey, give them credit for fighting for all the games. They're also going to get a couple more good ones in December. I know they play St. Louis and Las Vegas.
Yeah, no, so I'm not writing Drake off by any means now. They've got to do things like win this week where they're hosting Valpo, they're hosting St. Thomas, they're at Omaha. Those are necessary wins though. You start losing those games and all bets are off. Northeast Conference time, one of our favorite leagues here. And Griggs, let me start with you in this one where Wagner, good news to see that they finally got back in action tonight. They were not very competitive against Seton Hall, but if they had the very long COVID pause, they lost 3 or 4 games as a result of it.
They were competitive for a minute, but I mean, Seton Hall just stretched it open and it wasn't close at the end. But this is a Wagner team that I'm kind of big on. I really hate that COVID shut them down because they really had, even though it was just 2 games, a big head of steam going. That's how it felt. But I don't like, you're not really going to see there's a lot of red over there. There's always going to be a lot of red, but this conference is a gem once it gets in the conference play.
Yeah, we kind of wish we love this conference. If you look back highlights, I think if you will check out my Twitter feed, you can find it. The end of that Mount St. Mary's Howard game, a 3-pointer by the Mount to win at the buzzer was a very exciting win last night. But Rocco, so you had a comment on the league also.
Well, I just want to say I love Wagner. So tonight, both Delani Hunt and the NEC Player of the Year, Alex Morales, didn't play.
Okay.
And they still fought Seton Hall until about 6 minutes to go. It's still single digits with everybody else. But no Morales, no Hunt. I thought they'd lose by 40.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how, Bashir Mason's got this team playing so hard together and so well together. I just think they're going to be really tough to beat in the NEC if they get everybody healthy.
They've got 2 winnable road games coming up at Stony Brook and at Penn State, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Tormund, let me go back
Those
to
are
you
tough
and
games for them. Yeah.
and jump over to the next conference, the Ohio Valley Conference, if I catch it, get it to show up here on the screen. But in the OVC, we've got a couple of teams, the teams that seem to always be there. Murray State and Belmont leading the way. Morehead State, who was in the tournament last year, so they're with a decent overall record after they turned things around when beating what I thought was a pretty good Kansas City team and winning at Arkansas State over the weekend.
Yeah, the conference has actually shown pretty well. I'm impressed with Murray State. I think I hit them about 5 when we pull up the poll later, but they've done what they needed to do. They've won the games in front of them. They've beaten some games I actually didn't think they were going to. This is going to be one of the great conference tournaments come March again. There's so many teams that have the talent level is so tight. So I can't wait to see how this pans out, especially at the top.
But we got to talk, Griggs, about this Belmont team.
Yeah.
Beats the Drake team that we were just talking about, beats the Iona team that we were just talking about, and only comes up 2 points short against a Dayton team that was just red hot in their event there.
Yeah, I think you and I both. I think all 4 of us were really big on Belmont coming into the year. In your preseason bracket, you had them on the 10 line, and none of us were disagreeing. We thought that it was within reach, and I think that they've shown that they can end up there. There's some good teams in this conference, as Dortmund pointed out, but I don't know. I think Belmont, if they run through it, they already have at least some credentials to land inside the bubble. The one loss to Dayton, they've lost 2 games or 3. One was at Ohio, a team that we really like. No shame there. A very close loss to a Dayton team that's suddenly extremely white hot. So I just think that I think they look like they could land inside the bubble and get on that 10 or 11 line. I really do. They're that good. They've got a couple games coming up against Lipscomb that are not going to be easy, but they should be able to win them. And I think they're going to run away from this conference.
Yeah, only 1 Lipscomb game this year, unfortunately.
Right. Oh, really? What the hell?
Yeah, they screwed it up. It's like the first time in 20 years. But hey, guess what? Belmont's going to St. Louis too. Like, who isn't playing St. Louis? This is awesome.
That's this is a real interesting week for Belmont with the big rivalry game against Lipscomb, a trip to Samford in between there on Sunday, and then the trip to St. Louis on Tuesday.
Well, they need to drop Samford and put Lipscomb back on the schedule.
That might be the problem. They went to play Samford in between and just messed everything
up. Everything.
Murray State, a very interesting game on Saturday against a Middle Tennessee team that only has 1 loss of the season, so that might be worth circling to. A battle of 2 teams with only 1 loss so far. But Rocco, over in the Patriot League, you weren't with us last week. This was our feature conference last week at our Under the Radar show, but we've got their Navy, I guess they're really kind of the team to look at here. They picked up a couple more wins this week.
And Navy's really solid, and they've already got a resume too. You win at Charlottesville to start the year. You got a lot of moxie going into the rest of the year. Now the road win at Furman helps a lot too in terms of that's probably going to land in Q2, I would imagine. So Navy's still like kind of in a crazy way in the picture. Who knows how long it lasts? But Ed DeChellis, just an unbelievable coach. He's done a phenomenal job these last 2 years. Everything he did last year through the COVID stuff, them and Army were the only 2 playing in non-league, and carried it through for a co-championship in the Patriot League regular season. Building on that, a lot of the same guys are back, and so I'm high on Navy. I like what I've seen. In terms of the rest of the league, we gotta mention the Leopards, Chad. We gotta mention the Leopards. They did beat Rutgers.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh,
what is this Rutgers thing? I'm not that sure what that is. Hey, Rutgers can beat Clemson whenever they play, but other than that, nobody. But there's the upcoming schedule in the conference. Navy's games this week. They've got a game at George Mason, who got out to a pretty good start in the A-10. Tailed off a little bit more recently, but that might be an interesting game coming up on Tuesday night. But Griggs, over in the SoCon, which this conference is definitely worth spending a few minutes on. I know you love this Furman team. I personally
Yeah.
love this Chattanooga team, and
I like them too.
and I was really high on ETSU. Not that the way that they lost badly to UAB tonight really kind of disappointed me. I really thought that they
that
game.
is a little bit of a sour tape, but like whereas Furman, the win at Louisville was spectacular. They did have the home loss to Navy, and they did really struggle to win at High Point the other night, which they did get the win. It was on the road, but they didn't win handily the way that I thought.
Was that an overtime game also?
It was, yeah. Wofford's looked really good. The Citadel, by Citadel standards, doing amazing. They beat Pitt, which no big deal there, but they also have another win. I forget who it's against, but this is just going to be a really fun league. Samford, how about them off to a 6-1 start?
Citadel's other win was just this past week at South Carolina State, a little in-state
so
rivalry.
That's pretty
there.
decent, yeah.
It's South Carolina State, not South Carolina, but
still better than Pitt.
Dorman, when I look at this conference, one of the things we see with a lot of these under the radar leagues is in these non-conference games on the past week's results, we see a lot of blue here, a lot of wins as opposed to a lot of red in the losses. Things like Greensboro beating Vermont, things like that all this past week. Wofford winning at Georgia.
Wofford's
will
good.
help the Yeah, Wofford's good. The conference metrics come March. These team sheets are going to look solid because of what they've done out of conference. I know some of these games they should have won, but you can only play you can only beat who you play. They've done all they can do, most of these teams, and like I said, come March, these teams are going to look good on paper.
I think they will. Can anybody land inside the bubble in this league?
Yeah.
No, okay.
It's going to be tight, but
there's hope.
Yeah,
there's hope. Exactly.
Yep.
They've done what they needed to do so far. I'm with Rocco. There's good hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chattanooga's got the home loss now to Charleston, which will hurt them a little bit, but everything else they've done was awesome. Unfortunately for them, that opener at Loyola Marymount's looking less and less impressive. But the road win at VCU is very respectable.
Yeah,
and I think the Mocs are super well coached and a really solid team.
Mm-hmm.
The upcoming schedule for this week in the SoCon, we see the Furman Charleston game that we already mentioned. Chattanooga is at Lipscomb, as well as they'll be at UNC Asheville. There's a few games worth circling, I guess, here.
Belmont at Sanford Sunday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Sanford's
should be a good game.
Sanford's like 12th in tempo, and they've shot over half their shot attempts are threes, like 50.4%. So it's run and hoist with buckyball. And they got Quest Glover from Florida, so he's a high major player coming over in the transfer portal. He's made a huge difference. He's scored over 20 in each of the last 3 games for the Bulldogs. He's a perfect fit for this run and hoist system. And so just watch out, because they beat Belmont last year with worse players. Now they have better players, and we know what Belmont's capable of. So this should be a really good matchup.
Yeah.
Rocco, let me stick with you for a second here. This Southland Conference, I guess what we can say is Texas A&M Corpus Christi has a nice overall record. Heck, on Saturday they beat St. Mary's. Sure, it was St. Mary's at Texas, but it was a win over St. Mary's. But
for it being for it being Steve Lutz's first year, this is really cool for them. They did get the 3 D1 wins against IUPUI in Denver. They won that little event. 2 pretty bad low major teams, but
it's big nice. Yeah.
But it's confidence booster, Chad. Come on. UTSA, 19-point win at UTSA. I know they're bad too, but anyway, these small little victories. Steve Lutz came from Purdue. He's instilling the Purdue offensive system, very similar. And I'm just curious to kind of see how they do over the year. It's not that I'm not expecting anything really this year, but I think long term they could actually build a pretty good program under him.
Okay, fair enough. Upcoming schedule for this week, real quick here, also in the Southland Conference. Griggs, do we just kind of move on here, or is there anything you want to?
New Orleans is at Louisiana. Moving on.
Well, let me stick with you, Griggs, here. What is that? We hit the wrong button somewhere. Let's try this again. Moving on from the Southland Conference, how about something much more powerful like the SWAC?
Moving on.
Okay.
The SWAC is outperforming the Southland this far. How about that?
It is. It is. We're up to, what is it? 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, we're almost already to the double-digit win total. Are we there already? No, we're not.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we are.
Well, Southern's won 3. Oh, you're talking.
Yeah, no, D1 wins. D1 wins.
Okay, gotcha.
There were years.
Nine.
There were years where the SWAC, and more than one, where the SWAC failed to win 10 D1 out of conference games. I like this Southern team. They've been collecting the paychecks and going on the road and getting bought, but compared to the rest of the conference, I kind of like them a lot better than anyone else I've seen.
I want to give
How
about Jackson? How about Jackson State winning at Louisiana last week? That was a big win.
That was astounding. That really was.
Yeah, for the kind of players Louisiana has, and Jackson State, they still have Javius McGinnis. He's one of the best rebounders in the country. Really, real treat to watch. Just a feisty team. Even though they're 1-6, it was good to see them get a win because they're playing big time teams on their schedule.
Yeah, they are, and a lot of these teams are.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Alcorn State too. They beat Baldwinless Milwaukee.
Well, yeah, Baldwinless Milwaukee. There we go. And that's let's talk a little bit about. Oh, actually, wait. That's first of all, that's the upcoming schedule there for the SWAC. Grambling at UConn, Alcorns at Tulane, and then at Houston. I don't see any
Southern and Kentucky.
Gulf Coast at Florida A&M. That could be a conference win.
Alabama State hosting Samford. I tip of the hat, and I mean this because nobody goes to these SWAC and MEAC schools for out of conference.
Well, it's a pretty short bus ride from from Birmingham to Huntsville, right? So
but at least they're going.
Montgomery.
At least they're going.
Montgomery. Sorry, Montgomery.
Yeah,
okay.
They could have easily said, "Well, it's a short bus ride for you two. You're coming here," but they're going there.
I agree with that, Dave.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's move right on, Dorman, over to the Summit League, and here we've got the South Dakota State team off to a pretty good start, and we've been kind of watching a little bit of Western Illinois so far this season as well. I think
I'm very impressed with Western Illinois so
very
far.
Surprised. Wow.
I don't believe they've ever been to the tournament. Am I wrong, David?
I don't ever remember them getting there. If they've been there, it was before we started doing this.
They beat Nebraska. Then I believe they went to DePaul and barely lost. They were in that game the whole way. Went right down the stretch. They actually could have won it. A few shots went in and out. And that game with DePaul, and everyone's singing DePaul's praises so far. And Western Illinois looked good in that game. So I think Western Illinois, it could finally be their year. I like what they're doing so far. They're playing tough defense. But South Dakota State will be the team to beat.
Yeah, a quick note on Western Illinois. Never been to the NCAA tournament. They've had a couple CBI appearances, and they did win what is now the Summit League. Back when it was called the Mid-Continent Conference. They won the conference tournament title back in 1984, but that was before the conference had an automatic bid. I believe it was the second year of its existence. But
wow.
No NCAA tournament appearances. Back when the rules required a conference to exist, I believe, for 5 or 6 years before it got a bid. The rules have since changed. But that's what the rules were back then. Rocco, the upcoming schedule here in the Summit League, anything that you're circling, maybe it's the Oral Roberts TCU game. Maybe that's interesting game still.
Yeah, that could be pretty interesting. Not a whole lot coming up that I penciled or saw. The league in general, I would just say that, it's awesome. Not many teams playing defense, so it's good to see Western Illinois playing a little bit of defense now, and Kansas City's awesome on defense. Besides those two, nobody's playing defense. Everybody's shooting threes. So you got the nation's leader at St. Thomas is Riley Miller, 35 made threes. Second is Noah Friedel from South Dakota State, 34 made threes. South Dakota State shoots 44% from three as a team, and they've already had a crazy schedule, some good wins. Dropped a couple of those too, but obviously a really good team. And Oral Roberts leads the nation, 13.6 made threes average per game. So if you want to see 3-point shooting, watch the Summit League.
We do have one really big game, Chad. I'm
Well,
surprised you
David, I was
overlooked it.
was going to, before we go to the Sun Belt, still in the conference, I'm going to take a quick break to speak about another conference because of the game that's coming up Thursday night that I know you're
Yes.
looking at.
Yeah.
Yes, Denver is at Wyoming. It is a front range conference
Yes,
game.
it is a front range game. And again, this conference does get an automatic bid. If Colorado State can win this conference, they will go to the NCAA tournament.
Mostly, in all likelihood.
In all likelihood, yes.
But nobody gets higher than Wyoming.
Than Wyoming.
But how about
Yes.
this? We have two undefeated teams still in the front range in Colorado State and Wyoming. Colorado State with a big 88-79 conference win past Saturday over Northern Colorado.
Yeah.
But let's see. We do have that Denver. We mentioned we have that Denver-Wyoming game coming up, the Wyoming's first conference game. The rest of the upcoming games here, we've got, I think that's the only conference game on the schedule for this week.
I think it is. Yeah.
But there's the rest of the games involving
Wait till the conference tournament.
Right. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to be hosting the conference tournament, right?
Right. Yeah.
We did skip a
Correct.
conference. One more conference we didn't get to because we started off with the WAC. But let's jump over to the Sun Belt Conference. Let's see here. Who am I up to? Dorman, let's go to you here. Start out with the Sun Belt, where we've got some decent overall records. Only 3 or 4 teams there with losing records overall so far. Although nobody's, everyone has at least 2 losses.
Correct. I've been pretty impressed with South Alabama. They've looked pretty good. One of those losses, I believe, was to Alabama in Alabama. They were in the game the whole way. There's some decent teams. Arkansas State's put together a nice little record. Texas State, I believe, is 5-2. But to me, South Alabama will be the team to beat as we start conference play.
South Alabama, Rocco, a little shout out maybe also to Coastal Carolina. Cliff Ellis, 800 career wins now.
Just beat South Carolina by 24 tonight. How about that?
Did they? Whoa.
Yeah, they pounded them. Shout out to Cliff Ellis. A hell of a career. He's great coach, great guy. Kudos to him. Dorman, I'm impressed with the South Alabama. They loaded up in the portal, and they ended up winning the Las Vegas tournament. Had a couple close calls. They beat San Diego there. They're gonna have some bigger games coming soon, I think. So. And their 2 losses are Wichita State by 6 and Alabama by 5. Both games were seesaw. Really, really talented team. But you have to look at, Texas State's going to play the best D in this league. They're going to still be a factor. I also think, I don't know, Appalachian State seems to be solid, but they're just not getting the big wins. And then Georgia State's also really talented as well.
Yeah, Georgia State, interesting road test at Mercer coming up this weekend. One of those games worth circling. Winthrop at Coastal Carolina, game worth circling. So a few actually worth watching this week. Griggs.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, we did have another big result tonight. Louisiana Monroe knocking off Centenary. Centenary keeping it under 40, something they rarely did when they were a D1 team, which is why we have an award named after them.
I'll tell you, one other game we want to circle coming up this week in this conference is not come until next Wednesday, but Carver Bible will be at Georgia Southern.
Carver Bible College.
I think it's about time we check in on how Carver is doing this season. How are those Cougars doing? Off to an 0-8 start so far, but they did hold McNeese State under 100 points. You got to give them a little bit of shout out for that. And couple tests this week coming up here. They got at North Carolina A&T, at North Alabama, at Georgia Southern, at NC Central.
We need to find them some more opponents. We need to get them to the 23 opponent mark so they can be on the board.
Let's go to our under the radar top 10 list. This is the list all 4 of us submitted our top 10 list. As you can see, the votes were all over the place because we have as many teams that did not make the top 10 that received at least 1 vote as we're even in the top 10. Tons of honorable mentions this week. So let's just go through all those honorable mentions real quickly. Not making the top 10 from bottom up, Norfolk State. I voted for them. You 3, left the team with the most wins in all of Division I off the list. I voted for Norfolk State. We also have Navy, Buffalo, Drake, South Dakota State, UAB, Grand Canyon, Furman, Campbell, and Murray, all getting at least a little bit of love in these polls here. But let's go to our actual top 10. Toledo coming in at number 10. That is our the other team from the MAC, I guess we'll call them. We had a two-way tie for 8th place between Monmouth off of that big Cincinnati win and that Weber State team off to the undefeated start. Tied for 6th, we have Oakland out of the Horizon League and
like this Oakland team
and the Mocs out of the Southern Conference that we just spoke about a few minutes ago. Our top 5, we definitely have a shakeup in our top 5. The first few weeks we had a pair of Missouri Valley Conference teams leading the way. That has definitely changed this week. But we've got Belmont coming in at number 5.
good pick,
Good team in the OVC. Number 4, we got UC Irvine coming in.
Eaters, all right. Eaters, way up there.
At number 3, we got Loyola Chicago. We still have a Missouri Valley Conference team on there. As you can see, Drake in the honorable mentions, they're the only Missouri Valley Conference team that's going to be in our top 10 list. After what we were praising them in the preseason, we thought half this list would be MVC. Ohio U coming in at number 2, leading the way in the MAC. And drum roll, please. Congratulations
we all know who it is.
To Rick Pitino and the Iona Gales, the now moved into first place as the number 1 under the radar team here. And this is a position I think they may hold until they start cracking the top 25 rankings and move right up off the radar at some point this season.
Yeah, they really could. And the one thing about these under the radar teams is that you see a lot of good coaches that have not made a name for themselves. Keep an eye on Iona's coach. I think he might turn out to be a household word.
In all seriousness, one quick note here. We did start out with the WAC tonight. One team we didn't spend very much time talking about just briefly was Utah Valley. As we record this, they are neck and neck with BYU late in the game. So the reason we didn't discuss that big win, if it does happen, is that it did not go final by the time we finished recording this.
Yeah.
But
it's impressive.
On that note, I'm going to go ahead and pull this down here, run through each of you for any other final thoughts on the evening or anything else you want to discuss. Dorman, let me start with you.
As we noted on a lot of these great conferences, conference play is starting tomorrow and heats up this weekend. There's some big games. These games on the sheet are just as big as they will be in February and March because it's conference season, so they are huge. So I look for good basketball to continue because we've had a great start to the season.
We have. It's really been a fun few weeks here. Hopefully, and we are just getting started. Although November is normally a great month, then December tapers off a bit, then things really get good into January. But I don't know, with more conference play in December this year, we may have a couple good weeks coming here as well. Rocco.
Yeah, on that note, I will be covering Cleveland State in Northern Kentucky tomorrow up in Cleveland. I'll be driving up there tomorrow. So I'm excited. I haven't seen a Horizon League game in person. I have seen Wright State host a non-conference game, but yeah, this will be pretty cool experience. I think those are going to be 2 of the top 4 or 5 teams in the Horizon, so it should be a really good tip-off to the season. And outside of that, I just want to also give a shout out to FIU. Moved to 7-1, really impressive finish today to beat Gulf Coast. FIU still hasn't played a top 100 team, but they are playing very well. They won all their games at the Jersey Mike's Classic. It's just another example of a team that could go and rebuild out of the transfer portal. I mean, they've got such an older team this year. They got bigger players, better shooters. Met with their coaches earlier this week, so just props to them. They're playing very, very well for what we thought of them, and so them in Middle Tennessee, big time sleeper teams out of Conference USA coming out of nowhere.
Absolutely. Greg, do you want to finish this off?
Yeah, we love the Front Range as a mythical conference. It isn't the full schedule that they used to play. Like, they all used to play each other, and they would all actually go on the road every other year. Like, those teams would go to Denver and they'd go to Wyoming. Is the Beehive becoming a new awesome mythical conference? Because Utah State, and BYU, they do go to Utah Valley and they do go to Weber. Yeah. And I don't know if Southern Utah is in there, but like the rule is 6. That is what you need for a mythical conference. Do we need to start giving an automatic bid to the Beehive State one?
Well, yeah. I mean, with Dixie State, which will become Utah Tech next season, then absolutely, we may. Maybe I don't know. Maybe we could have the Front Range champion play off against the Beehive champion for an automatic bid. We could work something out like that, right?
Yeah, I think the front. We're keeping it alive. We're continuing to bang the Front Range drum, but for the Mountain West Conference, they would actually designate one of the 2 games as the Front Range game, and the other one was just a regular meaningless Mountain West game, whatever that is. But because you had Colorado State, Air Force, and Wyoming.
Wyoming.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
well,
Well, look how good. Yeah, I mean, look how that's an amazing point about Beehive Conference. I know we could have fun with that, but look at all those programs right now. They're all playing well except for maybe.
And
Dixie
they all
State.
play each other. That's what I love
mean,
about
it's
it. It's
just-
like BYU
it-
is at Utah Valley. Sorry, I cut you off, Rocco. Yeah.
No, you're good. Yeah, and I'm just saying, like they love their basketball in Utah. A big reason why Ryan Odom took the Utah State job out of nowhere from Maryland is because he went on a trip there for his anniversary with his wife and met Quinn Snyder, the Jazz coach, and got totally sold on how into basketball everybody is across the whole state.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's a lot more to it if we want to run with this. That's all. I'm saying.
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe Notre Dame's head coach is going to quit and go to the Beehive Conference. That's how
That's how tempting it is.
tempting. But in all seriousness, though, maybe we'll revisit the Beehive Conference next week. We'll see. But at this point in time, though, on behalf of David Dorman and Rocco Miller from Bracket, you can check them out at bracketeer.org. Down below me, David Griggs over there. I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be talking to you again real soon.